Listen up, beautiful people. I want to take just a minute to tell you about our new hosting site, Anchor. Anchor is your one stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. So go to anchor.fm/start and become part of the Anchor community today. And now, back to the show. All right, beautiful people, look here. We've got a great one for you. We really do. I mean, this is good stuff. Mike Sparks, who is the head honcho at Beautiful Game Network, is joining us today to talk about Beautiful Game Network, to talk about the USL East, to talk about just the community of American soccer and what that means. He's going to talk about a little bit about Pittsburgh because that's where he's from, and he's going to talk a little bit about just the USL in general. It's a conversation that we are now a part of, and I'm really excited about that. Just to be a part of the USL conversation, a nationwide conversation of professional soccer teams. We here at the pod are excited about being part of Beautiful Game Network, and so it has been a really good experience so far. We asked Mike to come on and tell us a little bit more about it and how we as a fan base can benefit from the 901 Soccer Pod being a part of this community. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the 901 Soccer Podcast. Let's welcome Mike Sparks to the show. Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Scotty. How's it going?
Everything is going great. We are extremely glad to have you with us. I have described you as the head honcho in charge at Beautiful Game Network. My first question for you, Mike, what on earth is the Beautiful Game Network? What have I signed us up? What have I gotten Memphis into here?
Oh, man. So the Beautiful Game Network is really just a collection of people like yourself, people like myself, who absolutely just love the sport of soccer, love having great conversations about soccer, love talking about interesting topics related to soccer. And really, it got started just a few years ago where we started our own podcast. I live in Pittsburgh. We started a podcast about the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. And we had other friends that were like, hey, we know you do this podcasting thing. Could you help us out? And these were other people around the USL. And we said, absolutely. So it just became something where we started to share knowledge and share ideas. And like I said, that was like 3 years ago. And it started with one show. And I think we're now up to 30 different shows all across the network talking about USL, MLS. We have one show that covers the Premier League, and just recently we started branching out and having writers join us as well, and they're producing amazing written content. And so really, it's a whole bunch of people who love soccer, have a passion for it, and love covering it from a grassroots level, and really sort of getting out there and talking to other fans and teams and players and coaches, and we just have a blast with it. And so, when we heard that you guys were starting a show all about 901 Memphis, or Memphis 901, apologies. It's just, we were beyond excited because everything that's going on in Memphis right now is just so exciting. And we just cannot wait for you guys to take the field. This is going to be great.
We're having a lot of fun. I got to be honest. This is fun.
Yeah.
This is fun. So you are with Mongols, and then you kind of go out to this, we branch off into this bigger thing, and they're nationwide. You got all these people. How have your, I guess, initial listeners benefited by being part of this bigger overall network with all of these different soccer people?
So, yeah, I mean, we have our listener base in Pittsburgh, and I think one of the biggest advantages that they get out of, us being part of the network, and similarly, what we think that Memphis fans will get from you, being part of the network, is just the access to so many other individuals that are knowledgeable about all of the other teams across the entire league. and not only the individuals that are knowledgeable about teams. So, you're connected with us now. So anytime that you want to talk about Pittsburgh, or you want the inside scoop of who are the real players you should be watching, or what sort of tendencies you should be looking for, all you have to do is ask me, and I will be glad to give you the scoop. And likewise, it's sort of vice versa. And that's knowledge that most people don't get when covering a local team. You have sort of pundits who will, write up, well, this is what we sort of expect, based on what blah, 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 blah. When you talk to diehard fans who are at every game, or they're watching every game and they're breaking down every game, it's a whole new level of information that you get that you can then take into that next game. And really it takes the view.
Hey, can you hear me? Man, that was a good answer too. Hey, Mike, we lost you there for a second.
Yes, sir. I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, you're going strong there. Okay, so let's test this. Let's test this a little bit, what you're saying. Let's put this slightly to the test here. Let's talk for just a minute about Pittsburgh, because you guys play in what is, my favorite stadium in USL. It's so unique. It's so different. And when you got a guy who is lining up to take a corner, you could very easily see a barge float by. That is not, that's not the normal standard practice way of things across USL and across American soccer. So tell us a little bit about that stadium, and some recent changes that stadium has undergone. Because when I think here in Memphis, we're going to have people getting into the league for the first time, right? So they turn on ESPN Plus. Memphis isn't playing that day. They're watching, let's say Pittsburgh is playing Louisville City or whatever, and they're like, man, this stadium is pretty cool. What's going on here? Tell us a little bit about the stadium in which the Riverhounds play.
So the Hounds play it's called Highmark Stadium, and it's actually on the bank of the Monongahela River, and it faces downtown Pittsburgh. So honestly, I mean, they're on a summer night, there's no better place to be in Pittsburgh than sitting there. You get to see the sunset, and like you said, there's a river that runs right alongside the field, and so we actually got the show name Mongols, because early on, especially early in the season, as teams are sort of feeling each other out, you have a lot of balls that actually go over the netting and into the river, which we call the Mon, so it becomes a Mon goal. But no, I mean,
I love it. That's great.
It's an amazing venue to catch a game. One of the things I love about the USL in general is a lot of these stands are right on top of the field, so you get to hear every little thing that's going on, and you're part of the action. And so, yeah, we have, the barges floating down the river. From time to time, you'll have a train that actually rolls right past as well, because the location itself used to be part of, it's called Station Square. It used to be a hub for a lot of train transit. And over time, that's sort of changed a little bit. But we still have train tracks that run through. And so, it's a fantastic venue for catching soccer. Recently, we've started expanding the seating section. So the supporters somewhat outgrew their section. So management came in and gave them a whole new supporter section. But overall, just there's so many cool things that are happening down there. And it seems like each year they're just adding a little bit more. There's talk of like whole new turf this year. That's just, as the team and interest continues to grow and flourish.
So Pittsburgh strikes me as kind of a city that is content, or a team that is content with just staying and being staying put in USL, right? There's always talk about MLS expansion, but we're going to be completely content to stick around in USL, and I'm assuming that you guys are kind of in the same boat.
It depends on who you ask. I think that if you ask any ownership, they're going to have aspirations for playing in MLS. They want to get to the top league. But honestly, as a fan, I absolutely love the USL. I think there's a very unique dynamic to it where you have some of these teams like Louisville, like us, where they're these independent clubs that are basically just trying to put out the best teams that they possibly can and are playing really good soccer week in and week out. You have these two teams from MLS that are in there that you never know what you're going to get. We being sort of, we're not an affiliate with an MLS team anymore, but a few years ago, we were an affiliate with Columbus. Zach Steffen, who is now the starting keeper for the U.S. men's national team, spent 3 or 4 months with the Riverhounds. And so we got to see him and hang out and just enjoy him playing with us before he's now gone off to bigger and better things. And so it's very different, I think, from a lot of other leagues in that you get to watch a lot of these players develop and come up. But because of the size of the league and because of how intimate it can be, you can develop relationships with a lot of these players on a personal level, which again brings a whole nother dynamic to the game. And so personally, I would love to see the USL just continue to grow and flourish and the Hounds to stay in the USL. But, who knows what's going to happen over the next 10, 15 years. I think Vermees said something about, MLS is going to expand to 40 teams, and then who knows what's going to happen. But for right now, I'm very content staying in the USL.
So tell us a little bit about the USL East. And how last year finished up and what we need to know going into 2019.
So what you need to know going into 2019, one of the interesting things is that no matter what happened the season before, you can pretty much throw all that to the wind as you get into the next season, because one of the things MLS tends to have is you have a lot of turnover with teams. You have a lot of players that are signed to maybe 1, 2, potentially 3-year contracts. And then, from there, they're either moving on or maybe they're staying put. But for the most part, you can't necessarily look at a roster from last year and predict how well they're going to do this season, just because there's so many variables that go into it. But I will say, Louisville won the entire USL championship the past 2 years. So they're always a team to look out for. I think that you guys are going to be, it sounds like, within driving distance of Nashville, and it feels like Nashville is going to have a lot of really interesting things going on since they're going to be moving up to MLS next year.
I think they're going to be good.
Yeah, I think they're going to be really good this year. I think we were just talking about it on our show. I think they signed like 60 goals. Basically, they signed 2 or 3 players in this offseason that equates to something like 60 goals from last year. So, they're going to be an entertaining team to watch. I think the top teams that you really should be looking out for this year is going to be Louisville, Nashville. Indy has spent a lot of money on players, and I keep saying Indy's either going to be really good or they're going to be a dumpster fire, and that's part of the fun of the US. You just don't know. Teams are trying to figure it out, and then you have sort of these older teams that are fun to watch. The Hounds have been around. This will be our 20th year. And then you have the Battery, who have been around for, I think, 26 years now. And they always sort of hang around, near the middle to the top of the table. And then the 2 teams, I think, are the ones that are most exciting because you just never really know what you're going to get. Red Bulls, they can show up and be a fantastic team, or they could show up and you could put up 8 goals on them, and it's like nothing. But like I said, I think the Wild West nature of the USL in general is what makes it so much fun, because no matter what happened the week before, throw that all out because it's game day and who knows what's going to happen. So,
we started a little thing. I started noticing that last year. We started a little thing called USL Quick Strike, where we were trying to get our fans to kind of know the league a little better. These little 10-minute podcasts where we just go through what happened on the weekend. And it was kind of like week to week, man, you could not predict a team. It's like, here's a team that wins 4-0, and the very next week they lose 2-0, and you're kind of going to a team sort of at the bottom of the table, and you're going, what's happening here? But it does, like you said, make it fun, and every game is something worth watching.
Right.
So, hey, one thing you mentioned about the stadium and a lot of the stadiums being up on the right up on the field. There has been an influx of teams recently playing in baseball stadiums. And I just thought, I wondered if we could get a little opinion on that. What do you think about teams playing in baseball stadiums?
You're not my favorite.
You're not going to hurt our feelings.
It's not my favorite thing. I think that when you're getting started as a team, the most important thing is getting started. Like, get out there. I mean, Louisville, like I said, Louisville's won the past few years, and they've played in the baseball stadium. Their field has been awful. But I think that what a lot of the fans will tell you is that the stadium does not make the full experience. So you might have fans from Pittsburgh who are used to a soccer specific stadium that'll travel, and they go to a baseball stadium and they'll say, like, this is terrible. You know, the sight lines aren't great and you don't really enjoy it. But ultimately what makes the games most enjoyable is the supporters, is the fans. And if you can get in with a supporters group and you guys are loud and crazy the entire game, it's not going to matter if you're playing a baseball stadium or a soccer stadium or, you know, on an ice rink. It doesn't matter. Like, the fans are going to make the experience. Right. So I think the ideal situation is get a team in the league. And if they have to play in a baseball stadium, then, you know, great. But then if in the next 2 or 3 years you now have a growing fan base and it warrants going out and making a soccer specific stadium, I think that's ultimately where it's going to be. That's where you're going to have the best experience in terms of just viewing and viewership and things like that.
I think you will find that we are a little closer to the action than you will see in most baseball stadiums. I mean, I was on the front row down the first base line, and I mean, I could read the specialized stitching on one of the guys' cleats.
Nice.
It was just like right on. They, you know, take out the pitcher's mound and just, you know, put the touch line really, really close to the fans, to the action. So, yeah, we're in a baseball stadium, but That's may great. Just be a little more conducive. The shape of the stadium might be a little more conducive than most baseball stadiums. That's the only reason I brought that question up. You know, just because it's a little bit different, and we've had some players from Colorado and from Tulsa say this is different than playing in most baseball stadiums where we've been. So, you know, maybe it'll be advantageous to all involved. So we're getting close here to wrapping up with Mike Sparks. But Mike, I just kind of wanted to ask you this question because I've been, you know, we've been friends now for going way back about a week and a half. And, you know, I've enjoyed being in a huge group chat with soccer people from all over the country. How has that experience impacted just your personal love of the game and enjoyment of the game, having friends from all over the country that know you love this sport as much as, or they love this sport as much as you do?
It's been beyond amazing, and it's been beyond anything that I could have ever imagined. I mean, I've made friends through this that I don't want to say I will say that some of them will be lifelong friends, and some I've never met in person before, but like we'll talk or we'll jump on a Google Hangout and we'll catch up on things. And I think what's interesting is that no matter how big a fan you are of anything, no matter how passionate you are about anything, there's always something that you don't know. And I think that having this sort of massive network of people, like I said, I think we're up to 80 people now total across the network that all sort of specialize in what it is that they know and what it is that they do. It constantly gives you this opportunity to learn things that you didn't know before. And ultimately, you know, for someone like yourself, you learn those things, you pass those on to your fans as well. And now everybody's sharing in sort of that collective knowledge base and that collective discussion. So for me personally, it's been nothing but enjoyable to see the different ideas that people have, the different articles that come up, the different topics people want to talk about, things that I would never consider, but are sort of groundbreaking when you think about them in terms of the relevance to the game and to society. And just it's been beyond amazing. And I'm just so grateful, you know, for everybody that's involved and being able to communicate and just enjoy the time with all of them. So it's been nothing but amazing. And, you know, we're, like I said, we're beyond excited to welcome you into this as well. Cause like I said, a lot of great things happening in Memphis, and we can't wait to get sort of the boots on the ground reaction to everything and sort of learn what you learn.
Man, it's really, really exciting. Let me push one article that is on the website right now. Carson Merck sat down with 4 African-American players and as a part of Black History Month and got their take on soccer in America through an African-American point of view. And I thought it was great. These players really opened up. They had great answers, very insightful answers. The questions were phrased in such a way that would really get them to open up about some things that are going on in the game. And anybody who wants to can go to bgn.fm and read that article. I thought it was fantastic and a great outlet for players to have a voice that maybe they wouldn't have had otherwise. Is that a fair way to put that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, this comes back to the relationships that we have with some of the players in the USL. Hugh Roberts, who shared some points in that article, he has a show over on BGN called Backyard Footy, where he sits down with players in the USL, players in MLS, players in Europe, and just talks about their experience of growing up and the difficulties and what they had to overcome to become players. And yeah, absolutely. It was a fantastic article. I cannot recommend it enough. Yeah, it just great stuff coming out of everybody over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, one final question. You know, we're a basketball city. This has always been a basketball city. You are living in a football city. You know, no question about that when it comes to Pittsburgh. How can soccer gain a foothold in a city that is known for another sport?
Oh man, that is the question that we've been asking for the past 3 years. Honestly, I think that a lot of the growth is coming from the grassroots level. So I think that one of the things the Riverhounds did right is they started a youth academy very early on. And I think that we just graduated, I think it was 30 kids that all ended up getting scholarships to play soccer in college.
Oh,
and
great.
So the academy has been fantastic in terms of generating interest locally. And I think that, along with Pittsburgh, very much in addition to being a football town, they want to support winners. So I think last year when we brought in Coach Lilly for the first time,
right, proven commodity.
Proven commodity. You know, you start to see some wins. Last year was sort of our first run at the playoffs in a few years. You started to see a lot more interest, and I think that that's one of the things too, that as the team is more successful, there's going to be more interest because we have been around for 20 years. So I think people sort of know like, oh yeah, the Riverhounds, but we've never won a championship. So right. I think that as the team is winning, we have the Pirates who are on sort of a downward slope. The Steelers are doing what they're doing, but it's a completely different season. The Penguins, same sort of thing. So it's going to be an uphill battle. There's 3 other teams that people are constantly talking about on, you know, talk radio around Pittsburgh. And it's how do we get the Riverhounds into that conversation? And I think the team's doing a really good job in terms of getting out there, marketing, branding, and just winning. And I think ultimately the more that we do, the more that you know, our show does in terms of reaching out and getting in touch with people and starting things in the community. It's going to be more of an organic grassroots growth. Which I think is ultimately going to be much more sustainable long-term than something where you just sort of show up and 40,000 fans show up. And if you don't win, then they may go away. So it's tough, but it's something that we're working out. And, you know, we have high hopes for this season, especially after sort of what the team was able to do last season.
Well, Mike, I told you 15 minutes. We went 20. We thank you for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. And we are very, very happy to be part of the Beautiful Game Network.
Thank you, Scotty. We are very, very happy to have you. So thanks again, man. And yeah, we'll talk very soon
right.
here.
Thank you, Mike Sparks. We appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks. Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for now. Thank you to Mike Sparks for joining us. And don't forget, Fan Fest is this Saturday, 10 to 2 at AutoZone Park. We've heard rumors about kit reveal, cannot confirm nor deny. We'll just leave it at that. Terminex has been announced as the sponsor whenever those kits come out. And March the 9th is our very first professional match at AutoZone Park, the first professional match featuring a Memphis outdoor team in 39 years. So we are rather excited about that. That's going to do it for this week. Thank you for listening to the 901 Soccer Podcast.